Good morning, everybody, and welcome to week 5. Today, we're going to be covering creating custom procedures, which is really the ability for you to create reusable code. Is the best way to simply describe it. It makes it really easy to create animations for a specific class, like bipeds or quadrupeds, and then reuse that for all different instances of those classes. It also teaches you how to create them just for better organizing your code and things like that. So this is a super important programming concept, and then just a super helpful way of setting up and designing your program. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So for all of you that are joining us now on alice.org, the lessons that we are going through are under the resources, Alice 3 lessons. We have covered a couple of those up above. We are now going to come down here to this section, and today we'll be covering making procedural methods. Clicking on this one, you'll see the sort of example one. The slides we'll be going through are the presentation slides that accompany this. If you wanted to pause and print out things, the tutorial we'll be going through is the one that is down here. So once we get through the lesson, we'll be jumping over to this one and following along this Google Doc for exercises for creating this party. All right, so making procedural methods. First, I guess to answer the question is, what is a method? So a method is a small defined set of instructions within your program that designs a task to be performed. So the example that you see on the right now is one that we've created called jumping jack. So you see that it is having the character move up and down and wave its arms and legs, so doing a jumping jack. In Alice, we have the two types of methods. So going back to sort of our very introductory overview of the code editor, we have the purple procedures and the green functions. The functions, as you see in the list, are things like get distance to, so they're the ones that return a piece of data. The purple ones are the doing actions such as move forward and say and think and stuff like that. These are our sort of built-in methods that we have in Alice for you. The procedures one, these are the built-in procedures. We covered a bunch of this in just sort of the basic programming stuff. So because Alice is a 3D world and for animations, these are all things, for moving objects, orienting them. So our move, turns, and rolls, and then changing environmental effects. So when we talk about a user-generated procedure, we're really talking about you creating your own. So, why would you want to do this? One would just be that you want to write some code for animating characters, such as waving or having their mouth move or things like that. So in the little example picture, we see greeting that you want to reuse a bunch of times. So it can either be just for that specific character. So in this case, it's, Thor, or it could be for all bipeds, so any of our characters in that part of the gallery. Another reason to do it is to just simplify your code. So instead of having to program the same thing over and over again, also just for, let's say we're doing a animation that has multiple scenes, you could create a separate procedure for each of those scenes so that it's easier for you to just jump in your program to those specific sections. And then the last part we'll go over today is how you can then share those procedures. So in Alice, there is some merging challenges, future updates. We hope to one day implement a better way to do that. But since I could set up a scene very differently using different characters, merging code is a little bit more of a challenge, but you can share these certain procedures on classes so that if I create a really awesome walk cycle or something like that, that in future projects I want to use, there's an easy way to bring that code into other projects in the future so that you don't have to program that again. This whole lesson leans heavily on the sort of concept of hierarchy and inheritance. So when we talked about that, there was the gallery. So remembering back, one of the main shared things between the class hierarchy is in that biped, you can see the joints for the biped, you can see the joints for the flyer. And so all bipeds will share those same. If you look on the left side of that, this is our sort of hierarchy tree. There's a way I'll jump into Alice and show you where you'll see this. But so that is our hierarchy, so nested. So if you create something for one that is above it on the tree, it will allow it to be shared down to the other ones. the one thing to remember is that, if you do it above certain classes, they may not have the concept of those joints and stuff like that. So while you might be able to share something for Thor for all the bipeds, it wouldn't apply to a clownfish just because they don't share the same joint structure. So why do we want to use them? Abstraction is a big concept. This is an important one. A good takeaway from this lesson and just Alice in general is the idea that you're going to abstract a method. So really, you can use it without knowing what's going on underneath it. So our built-in procedures and functions are an example of that. While we have something like the say bubble is really doing a whole bunch of things. It's, deciding where to put that bubble, it's drawing that bubble, it's adding your text to it. You don't need to know how all of that works. You just want to use the procedure that is created. It also allows you to create sort of nested complexity. So abstraction allows you to create, even if it's not something for a specific character, like I was saying, something where there's like a scene or a start animation or a win animation or something like that, or different levels in a game, you can create those and call those separately, and it allows you to sort of manage that code and be able to navigate within your program to see and edit just those sections, both for code reuse, for creating ones that can be called or used by other people without necessarily having to worry about what they do, and then also for organizing your code. Those are sort of some of the big concepts of what abstraction is and why it is helpful for you when you're using Alice and programming in general. So like I said, our built-in procedures are examples of this. So like I was saying, this say, it has to select the location, the font, the weight, all those types of things. When I drag this say statement in there, I don't have to worry about what was going into creating that. I just want to use that method. Reusability is a huge one for, once I've created one, I can use it over and over again. I don't have to write that code a bunch of times. So it saves you a lot of time. Fish swimming, I can just make one swim animation. I can make a whole school of fish do it. My example for us today is, let's say that Thor is throwing a party and his guests are going to come up. If you see that middle panel, that is sort of the long form version of this, where Freya walks up to Thor, and so then Thor has to, you see the right shoulder going left and right, and then he says hello. That's sort of the greeting, right? And so then each time a new character walks up, so Loki walks up next, we've coded that same thing again, where he's going to wave and he's going to say hello. The right panel then shows you, if I use this concept of abstraction or create a custom procedure that is called greeting, that is really doing that shoulder move, the elbow move, and the hello statement, I can just call that over and over again. So the difference of looking at code in the middle versus looking at code on the right side, it is both far easier to read, and I just had to do a lot less work because I didn't have to, even if I am copying and pasting that code, it takes more time than just dragging in one procedure that I have created to use over and over again. Another great aspect of this is for debugging and editing. So if all of my program is just one big long method, in my first method, if I'm trying to find where I need to go and change something, or some part of the code doesn't work, it takes a while to both find it, replace instances of it, things like that. So just for navigating to be able to find it, and then also just the ability to edit something in one place and have that change go through everywhere. So sort of thinking in like the concepts of like using features in Word and things like that is the find and replace all. Instead of finding and replacing all and risking that I missed one or something like that, or replaced the wrong thing because it looked like it, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. If I know that I've created that small little method, I can go to that one place. So in our example, let's say that Thor moves to Texas or something like that. And instead of having him say hello every time a guest shows up at the party, I want him to say howdy. You can again look at that middle panel, and I've got to sort of navigate through that, and every single time find the hello, type in howdy to change it, and go through the whole program and hope that I don't miss one of them. If I've done that method where I've used and created this method greeting, all I have to do is go into that greeting one, find the one hello, change it to howdy, and then every time I have actually had Thor do the greeting, it's going to be replaced with howdy. So just saves me a bunch of time. I can have more confidence that I've replaced it everywhere I want to do it. And so, you know, the value to your time and sanity is huge. So then let's talk about how we create a new procedure. So there's a bunch of different places you can add a new procedure. The first one is on that left panel, this little yellow hexagon that, going back to the picture where we showed the sort of nested things, this will then show all of your sort of different classes. So if I wanted to do it just for Thor, I can come down, and if I'm selecting Thor, you see the add the procedure. So we can do functions and other things as well that we'll come to in later lessons. The one we're going to focus on today is add Thor procedure. The other option is navigating through those top tabs. So on the code editor, there was the multiple tabs you could tab across. And so for those, if I click on Thor or biped or things like that, you'll see a screen that looks like this. And the very top one will be this purple one that is procedures. So again, this is another place that I can do add Thor procedure. So there are two places that you can come to a menu that allows you to create your own procedure. The new procedure hierarchy. So this is important for just understanding where, when you're thinking about, I want to create a new procedure because I want to make code I can reuse, or I want to organize my program, where do I want to add that new procedure so that it does what I want it to do? Since we are object oriented, you can add them to the different classes that we have. So the things to consider is this scene is the highest class. That would be this one here. So you'll know you're there when you see scene on the tab, and you'll see the whole world in this image. So it's one that allows you to manipulate all the objects in the scene, this image being the window being an indicator of what you will be able to manipulate. So if I want to create a procedure where multiple different characters are going to move around, and I want to save that and use it over and over again. So if the greeting would use one character and another character, I would want to set that at this scene. If it was going to be a full start game animation, again, you would want to set it at the scene because you're going to manipulate everything that is under the scene, which includes multiple different types of classes, i.e. bipeds, quadrupeds, props, things like that. The next option is you can do it at the class level. So when you see those tabs and you see the drop down, you'll see biped first and Thor second. If I go to the biped one, you'll see in this image the same thing that you saw in the gallery, where you see the character and you see the joints running through the character. And that's to indicate that we're not doing it specifically for Thor down here. We're doing it for all of the objects that share this joint structure. So this is a great place to put things. If that greeting that I was going to make for Thor, I wanted to let Loki and Freya and everybody else do it, and I was only going to use the joints that were available at the biped level, I could put it there, and then anybody who shares this structure could use that same procedure. The last level is the actual sort of diving deeper, and Swimmer will have a couple of different nested levels. In the biped, there is the biped, and then there is the Thor class. And so the Thor class, I will be able to use, anything relative to Thor. So one reason that you might want to do it at this point is Thor doesn't have it in his model, but others do have unique joints to them. So if Thor had a hammer that only the Thor class had, some of our bipeds have a tail or ears or something like that. Those wouldn't be accessible at the biped level to program because they're unique to that class. So you would want to create that animation or that custom procedure at the Thor or the sort of unique class level because you're accessing things that are just for that one. Naming conventions, this one sort of goes with the same thing as when you add an object. You'll have to use camel case because it needs to be one word, no special characters and all the like. So again, if you see that is not a valid name, just double check that you are sort of following these basic principles. Once you've created that new procedure, you'll see that it's going to show up under in your editable procedures. So these will be ones that are either openable to change or ones that you have created. You'll also see it if you're navigating through the yellow hex drop down. You'll see that Thor now has greeting here. If you created it here, or you're looking at the scene class info, or I guess this is the Thor class info, you'll see greeting there as well. And then you can also get it by right-clicking on the procedure, and you'll see it here. These are then all ways that when I want to go back and edit it later, so in that example where we were going to change Thor's greeting from hello to howdy, these would have been all ways to select and open up the greeting to make an edit to it. Something that I wanted to call out, and this is sort of the programming term, is that this, when viewing a procedure, could be any object. So again, even though I'm doing this at the Thor level, so this is a custom procedure for Thor, Thor is still a class. I mean, I could have 100 Thors, right? So each time I add a Thor to the scene, it becomes Thor 1, Thor 2, Thor 3, Thor 4. So those are the instances of, and essentially that gets substituted for this when I would drag the greeting out, because we're not talking about I want every Thor that exists in the world to do this when I use it in code. I want it to essentially substitute the specific Thor that I am programming for. So building your procedure. Once we've created that, you're going to end up with, a purple tab that's going to function just like my first method. So going back to our intro coding one, you just drag whatever you want into here to build your code. So the greeting you see is a do together with the right shoulder turning and rolling, another do together for the elbow to sort of wave the end of the arm, and he says howdy, and then a do together to put the arm back down. So really just coding in there is no different than coding for my first method. Once you've done that, or even actually before you add code, going back to that one, you'll see it here. If you don't see it here, it means that you may have added it in a place that is not accessible by that character. So that is something to remember. The last thing that we'll go over is sharing a custom procedure. So in this case, we can export and import the full class. So think of it as this Thor class, which is everything that I've added to. So initially to the Thor class, it is, what he looks like, how big he is, and any custom joints, things like that, are sort of the information about Thor. If I go to that Thor class and I've created procedures or anything like that, you'll definitely see these buttons here. So there is add from class file or save to class file. If we create something that we would want to share, like the Thor greeting or a walk cycle or something like that, you click this save to class file, and it's going to create a new .a3c, so Alice class file. It's going to take everything that you have created here. So if I've created a greeting, a hammer throw, a bunch of other things for Thor, they will all get saved out with that class. The default name of the file will be the class. So you'll see that in the default folder that we create for you for Alice, where we save your projects, there's a My Classes folder, and that's where these will end up. Then the flip side of that is if I start a new project, you'll see that Thor doesn't have anything anymore, but I want to use that greeting. If I click the add from class file and I go to the My Class files in that Alice folder in my directory, I'll see the ones that I've saved. So here we've got Thor again. If I select that one and import it, you're going to get a pop-up that looks like this. Maybe I don't want to bring everything in, so you can choose which procedures, functions, and other things you've created for that class that you want to bring into your new project. In case you don't want to bring them all because you're not going to use them and you don't want to clutter up your project, you can just grab the ones that you want to use. Some tips and tricks for this one. We'll get into the example, and so we'll walk through some of this. But a lot of times you might not realize until after you've written the code in my first method that, oh wait, I think I want to do this a bunch of times and I don't want to code it over and over again. So an easy way to then move code from one method into another one or procedure in another one is to use the clipboard. So the little clipboard on the top right of Alice, I can take the code, in this case, the Mad Hatter move up and down, and I can drag that into here. You'll see the piece of paper turn yellow. And then I can go and do everything we talked about, where there was the add procedure, make what I want, and then drag that code back into the other procedure so that I don't have to code it all over again. And now that becomes reusable code. That's the biggest one for this. This is a pretty short lesson with some really important concepts. So I hope that we grasped all of those. We'll now go and do the tutorial for making procedural methods. But I will pause briefly and see if there are any questions thus far. Everybody's good out there?
Yep.
All right. Well, then if you want to come along, for this one, you're probably going to want to use a starter world because it's going to take a lot of time to set up. So if you're following along, go to the exercises and projects. See this little starter world here. That should allow you to save and download the file. We will then jump over, oh, I don't have an instance of Alice running, so we'll start up Alice. Go to File System, Browse, and I have lots of worlds, so we will try to search for the Mad Hatter greeting. A little bit of me time. So there we are. I will open that up. And then if you have printed out or following along, the concept here is much like the Mad Hatter, or the Thor greeting people at a party. We're doing a Wonderland Tea Party arrival. So you see the Mad Hatter here. Nobody over here. You should be able to double check, and there's a starting camera marker. So we followed sort of our best practices and did that. In the planning and designing the program, you will see a little storyboard that goes to the idea that somebody comes from the left of the screen to stand in front of the Mad Hatter. He says, "Welcome to the tea party." The next person shows up, says, "Welcome to the tea party," and on until our whole crowd is there. So when thinking about that in terms of what does the set design look like, going back to the part where all of the characters need to exist in the scene for you to program them later, you'll see that I have the little dotted line for the camera view, and that all of the guests are sitting 10 meters off screen, so I know exactly how far they are. If I zoom out, there they are, sort of huddled over here in the same sort of setup as I want them when they come into the scene. So I will use the camera marker to jump me back to the camera view I want. But if you want to check your starter world, sanity check that you have everybody off screen to the left and you've got all of this, then we should be good. If you then read below that set design, you should see, these are the things that we promoted in our last design lesson, that you would want to create a storyboard before programming. You would want to do a scene design to really make sure that I know what I need to set up for it to work, that I want it to work. And then the last one would be the algorithm design. And so in this case, we've got the Cheshire Cat walks up to the Mad Hatter says, "Welcome to the party." And then that repeats over and over again. So now we get into the actual talking through it. You should go through steps 1 through 4. If you wanted to build it, there's some descriptions there. Otherwise, just open up the Mad Hatter greeting.a3p. Ideally, we would want to do the writing. Oh, I'm going to turn off the Java code on the side. Comments for this. I should have saved down a version to just jump ahead on that. But you would drag in a comment here, and following our algorithm design, you would do the Cheshire Cat walks up to the Mad Hatter, taught to the Mad Hatter. Continuing on that logic, we would then have the Mad Hatter says, "Welcome to the tea party." So step and repeat that going down, remembering that you can do, option click. So I could speed this up by then just replacing the Cheshire Cat with the playing card, and on and on. So we'll do these two for the demo. Is everybody good so far? We've got the world open, got the commenting working, checked our scene, camera markers, all that kind of stuff. All right. Then continuing on, creating a custom Mad Hatter procedure. So we've noticed in our pre-planning that we've got welcome to the Tea Party happening multiple times, which makes it a prime candidate for something that we would want to create a custom procedure for. In this case, we will just go ahead and create it on the Mad Hatter. The Mad Hatter is the only one that's doing the welcome to the Tea Party over and over again. So remembering that there's two ways to access this, the hexagon will get me to the Mad Hatter here. I can then select either add procedure or select the class itself. If I do the class, it will jump me to the yellow folder that shows me all of these things. So I'll do that one just as a way to get to the add Mad Hatter procedure. So again, naming conventions, pick something that will make sense so that when somebody is looking at your code, they will understand what's going on, same way as using comments and things like that. So in this case, we will do greeting, hit OK. It automatically opens up the new method or procedure for you. So here's greeting. You can see it's nested under the Mad Hatter declare procedure greeting. So here we are with the greeting. We can now program this however we would like, and it will be reusable. So we will drag in the say statement to custom text string. Welcome to the Tea Party. All right, I'm going to continue on for the interest of time and answering questions, but I mean, you can make this then as complex as you want. So in our tutorial, we have you take the mouth of the Mad Hatter and sync it up to it so the mouth opens and closes. We set some time statements for it using a do together. So by all means, with your own time, go through, customize that, see how that works. In general, I would do a tip and trick here that I think we talked about in the past, but if you're using a stay statement and you want to give people enough time to read it, the default again is 1 second for procedures for Alice. So I would say, welcome to the Tea Party out loud and sort of count on my finger how many seconds it takes me to say it out loud. And as a good rule of thumb, that can be enough time for somebody to read. So in that case, it's somewhere in the 4 to 5 second range. So we'll make it 4 seconds. Again, at this point, go ahead and save your world. If we come back to my first method, we see that there's no code here. So if I run the world, even though I wrote code, nothing happens because my first method is the code that is run when you start your world. The fact that we wrote this code is great and it exists, but it hasn't been used yet. So to set this up, let's start with doing the Cheshire Cat. Remember, we set the Cheshire Cat off scene to the left, 10 meters. So if I take the Cheshire Cat and I do move, I pointed the Cheshire Cat so that 10 would bring me forward. So it walks forward. We can test this really quick. There's the Cheshire Cat. And then if we go to the Mad Hatter, we'll see that now the Mad Hatter has this greeting. So the procedure that we created here now exists in the Mad Hatter's editable procedures. And all I have to do is drag this in. We put it underneath our comment. The Mad Hatter says, welcome to the Tea Party, which references the greeting. Now when I run my world, Cheshire Cat comes in and the Mad Hatter says, welcome to the Tea Party. We would then repeat this over and over again. So let's say that we do this one, and I'm going to use Option click to use the move forward again. I'm going to do the playing card and then going to reuse the greeting. So that's an even lazier way to do it. I didn't even drag it from over here. Now, if I run this, Cheshire Cat comes in. Maybe 4 seconds is a little long. Playing card comes in. So you can see just how easy it is to reuse that greeting. Let's say that now we're running that, and in our iterative design process, we decide, well, it's kind of rude that they show up and don't speak as he says something. So let's say they want to say, hello, Mad Hatter, in response. We would go back and change our script and algorithm if we really wanted to be consistent, or minimally, we could add something in here that would then be the Cheshire Cat says, hello, Mad Hatter. Again, if we want to have everybody do that, we will see that now we are seeing something else that repeats, but in this case, there is a difference. We have something that changes, but what doesn't change is that they are all bipeds. So this becomes an opportunity to create something where we do it at the biped level, because if I make it at the playing card level, the Cheshire Cat wouldn't be able to use it. So again, using our custom procedures, we can go in here, and instead of coming down here and doing one for Cheshire Cat and one for playing card, which doesn't save us any time and make it any more reusable, we will go to the biped level. So again, you can do the yellow, or we can just do this add biped procedure here. So we will call this one guest greeting. So we create that one, and now we've got the biped, we've got guest greeting. So we're writing code in here. A reminder that when we look in this image here, you see that it says biped, and you see the joints. So then this is something that would be shared by all of this bipeds. We can do a this say, and so again, custom text string, and we'll say, hello, Mad Hatter. So now we have one that's created under biped. Everybody, well, I guess in the tutorial, I called it salutation. Obviously, just name it whatever you would like. So created my code in there. Again, could do all of the same things where I have the mouth move and open and close and things like that. If you follow the full tutorial, you'll see that. So now we have our custom biped procedure. If we go back to my first method, if I select any of the bipeds, so Mad Hatter, you'll see that there's the guest greeting that is marked as being under a biped editable. If I go to the Cheshire Cat, you'll see it as well. And you'll see that it is substituted in where that this was for the Cheshire Cat. So I can drag this in here, put it after the Mad Hatter greeting. I can then switch over to the playing card, who also has access to this guest greeting. And I can drag that in under this one. And now when I run my world, the cat comes in, the Mad Hatter greets him, the Cheshire Cat will respond a little fast because we didn't change the duration to beyond 1 second. Again, we do that one. So here's an example of editing. Now that I realized that, that seemed a little fast, all I have to do is go back to the biped guest greeting, change the duration here, and make it 2. Now when I run my world, all of the times that this is said, we'll get that duration change. So instead of having to go back in and change it for each line of code, I changed it in one place and it ended up everywhere. I'm going to go on to another lesson now. So save your world if you have it. Remembering that if I leave the play window open, I can't access stuff. So close the play window. I'm going to save as Mad Hatter in progress. And now we are going to go back to the presentation. That doesn't seem to want to work. If we go back to our lesson, so we had making procedural method. We also have another one that sits right next to that that is called using parameters. So I'm going to jump into that lesson now. So if you follow along, go to lessons using parameters. This one, if you're a teacher, doesn't have a full facilitation guide, and the facilitation guide for using custom procedures, creating custom procedures. It talks a bit about and has the support for this one. This is meant to be an extending, didn't want to do that, want to do this. So using parameters. What is a parameter? So a parameter is used to pass information to a procedure when the procedure is invoked. So when I would call the sort of greeting or something like that, a parameter would be something that I would ask for at that time. Most of our built-in Alice statements use parameters. So all of the things we've been doing thus far, the direction for a move, the distance for a move, the duration, those are all parameters where we have a procedure, but we want to append a different data point for it every time in each instance that you use it. So it allows me to then say that I want this piece of data when you run that to be added to the code wherever it's being run. So why use parameters? So parameter can allow you to create custom methods, but instead of having them be only the way that it is instanced that right moment, you can add some things that allow some variation so that 90% of the code we want to be the same every single time we invoke it, but some small part of it we want to change each time. So adding parameters. In that purple folder, there was the procedure that we created, or you'll see in other places as well. There's a button that says add parameter. We click on that and it brings up this smaller window. The parameter data type then goes with select the type of data that you will pass through the parameters. So we've got decimals, whole numbers, Boolean, text strings. We have a whole another small lesson that is on data types. What you really just need to understand is that these are the types that are supported inside Alice. So you'll see those. Select the one, like if the type of data you think is going to have decimals, use decimals. If it's just going to be whole numbers, Boolean is the same as saying true or false. And then text string would be sort of any text that you wanted to. We also have the ability for you to pass through gallery types, and then there's some other types in the bottom. Naming your parameter, make sure that you name it something that makes sense because it's going to show up in there. So you have naming your parameter. Be sure to name your parameter in a way that you will know how the data will be used. So, text bubble text or move to target or something like that. The parameter declaration, once you've created it, will show up where that add parameter button. So in this example, the target would be some type of sphere. So we've got target, we've got sphere. Using the parameter, you then drag that. We will come into this later. It is technically a variable, so a placeholder. You drag that one through, and then that will be replaced at a later date. So the declare parameter is a representational placeholder. So words is not really what we want it to be, but we will ask for and then put in the say statement that would then be it. Required arguments. So in Alice ones, we see a bunch of parameters and all of those things that we talked about. When you dragged them in, you couldn't actually finish the procedure unless it becomes addressed with that. So these will become that. Once you've done that, it will become a required parameter when using that custom method. So if you don't add something to it, it will be red. That shouldn't be possible once you've created it. Parameter warnings. If you add a parameter to something that you have already created, so maybe after the fact you decide you want to change it, that's what we'll do in our example. It will warn you that there's a bunch of procedures out there that are now going to get this, and it will be unset because we didn't force you to do it when you dragged it in. You can sort of hit OK on this one. It will then be something that you want to go and search for in your program, because this is an example of, while we try to let you not make broken code in Alice, there are things you might do that will then end up causing you to have broken code. So going back to our Thor greeting example, when we do the howdy, so Thor says howdy every time a guest arrives, What if we wanted to do something like that, but we wanted it to not use howdy every single time because he starts to feel like a broken record? We could customize the greeting by creating a greeting text for each greeting. So we want to reuse the arm wave because it took us a while to get that arm wave just right. So all of this code we want to reuse, but the only thing we want to change is the little text greeting. This would be an instance where we would add parameter. You can see that it's been invoked. So text string greeting text, and we drag that into here. Now, when we drag the greeting procedure out, you'll see that it says this greeting text. When I drag that in, it will sort of give me the same text prompts. Let's jump back to our example in Alice. So here is our guest greeting. Hello, Mad Hatter. Let's say that we wanted to allow them to say whatever they wanted each time they walked up, so it also doesn't seem weird that when I run my program, he says the same thing, and then they say the same thing. It's a little bit strange. So I'm going to come back out of that. We're on the guest greeting. Let me just double check that the party greeting is the one that we wanted to change. Same example, if you're following along, you can put it on either the greeting or the guest greeting. We would say add parameter. So it brings up this screen. It warns us that there's 2 times that this has already been called. So go look for the unset. You'll need to click the I understand to be able to keep going. Since it's what's showing up in that bubble, the thing we're going to want to do is the text string. So select text string, greeting text. So greeting text, the value type is text string because it's what's going to show up in that bubble. So it is text. We go ahead and say that we're going to fix this, hit OK. Now you'll see that it exists up here. This is the variable to pass through. The code we wrote still has the original Hello Mad Hatter. So if we don't override that, this would be the code that's written. So even though we've created this parameter, we haven't used it in the code. So I'm going to grab this greeting text. When you drag a variable around, it'll gray on all of the screen that you can't use except for where you can. So this is the only text data type. So I can drag it into there. And now you'll see it's the squiggly line for text type. This one is here. So now there is that. If I go back to my first method now, we see that all the places where it would need that parameter, there's red telling us that this is no good. So let's say we come in here and we want to change that parameter, custom text string. It's the Cheshire Cat. We'll just, this isn't really what the Cheshire Cat would say, but meow. And then the playing card could say something different. So custom text string will say shuffle. Odd, but works. So now we've used that same guest greeting. We've used it for a different character because we put it at the biped class. And then we've added a parameter so they can change something different. In my example here, since I didn't go in and change guest greeting to have them wave and their mouth move, there's not a lot of code that is used other than this. But in the instance that you had followed along this whole thing, that one would have worked and you would have been able to do that. Now when I run my world, Mad Hatter greets, Cheshire Cat says meow, playing card shows up, says shuffle. So we've now made substitutions both for the character using it that is at a higher level than just the class that is uniquely playing card. We did it at the biped level so we could substitute and use on both of those. And then we have created a custom parameter so that we could change just one part of the code that we read in there. So our main program looks very clean. It just has a couple of different things. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines long. But we have used a bunch of other things to extend this. And again, if you followed the full tutorial and you wrote something where there's arm waves and things like that, we have both very easy to navigate code, and then we also have ways to go and edit just small parts that are reused and things like that. I will say that I jumped a step here, and it's always good when you create a custom procedure or function or things like that to write in here this code is for using when the Mad Hatter greets people at the party, or just something that if I am going and looking at your code later, so maybe you share this project and I want to edit it, I would be able to open up, because I can come in here and see a number next to any of these that will let me know that a procedure has been added or something has been added. So I can look in there and I can see the different things. I might open this up and I haven't scanned all of my first method, or greeting might be used in a couple of different places. Having some little piece of comment here that lets me know why was this created, how might I use it, and things like that is helpful for people that might go on and use your project, extend your project, things like that. So just good practice for teachers to understand your world, for friends to understand your world, for future programmers that might want to use it as a basis of something. The last thing I will just show you is that maybe this guest greeting is something I want to use all the time. Here is the add from class file and the save to class file. So those would be things that I can use there. The tutorial goes on to show you how to use the clipboard. Sort of skipped over that one to just stay in the meat of it. Covered a bunch there at the end with parameters. So, all right. Well, I am going to then wrap up this session. Bunch of good stuff in there. Definitely something that I think that you should use a lot. You see a lot of Alice worlds that my first method just goes on for a very long time. It is way, way easier if we go ahead and break up our code in ways that allows us to navigate through it, share it, see where things are going, edit it, and stuff like that. So thank you all for joining me or watching this video on YouTube. Again, we will do another one of these next week. So join us for that. We will talk to you all soon. Have fun with Alice.